Hey fellow readers, today I am talking about Volume 2 in Jin's light novel series, Kagerou Daze. Now, this one has about two storylines. They're divided. The first storyline takes place about two-thirds of the novel. The second part is the last third. In the first part, we are introduced to a new character who is Takane Enomoto. She's in a specialized class because of a health problem that she and her classmates share. And they are tasked with trying to, between just the two of them and their rather slacker type teacher, to come up with an amazing booth for their school's festival. Now, the big problem with this is that Takane actually has a bit of a secret life. And it looks like the direction that their school festival sort of display is going into may just reveal her secret to everyone. Now, the second part of the story actually features the Mekakushi Don, and it is their visit to the amusement park that was discussed in book number 1. There's really not much else to say about that. So let's just get into the book. So if you watched my first review on book number 1, you'll know that I had some very mixed feelings about that book. I wasn't a huge fan of the writing style. I found that the first-person narratives that were used weren't the most engaging or interesting characters, and the pacing was a little odd. But I thought that there were a few kind of interesting ideas that enticed me enough to pick up this book. Now, in this one, the first story, the first two-thirds of this book, Takane's story, despite the fact that the setup may sound maybe kind of lame or silly, it actually is really engaging. And interspersed with it are these sort of little vignettes that I don't really want to give away, but they really tease this sort of bigger story and really drag you along and make you sort of want to leap from point to point to point. And as Takane's story unveils itself and reveals sort of how she ties into the whole story of the Mekakushi Don, you sort of get that. It's great, actually. Like, the pacing is a lot better in the first two-thirds of this book. And Takane herself, I still think that Jin tries to make his language sound a little too flowery. He sounds too much like an adult author trying to write the way that he thinks a teenage girl would think, which sometimes comes across as just a little too forced. But in general, though, I thought Takane had a much more interesting and unique voice than what we saw in the characters in book number 1. Now, in the last third of this book, when we get back to the Mekakushi Don, and we're to their sort of amusement park visit, it's really not that much of a story. It's much more about character vignettes and sort of giving us choice little moments with the various characters to get us to know them a little bit better. It helps to give us sort of a context and idea of who these people actually are and how it is that this group sort of fits together and what roles these various personalities fill. The last third, it's kind of like the brakes slam on all of a sudden. You've got this kind of cool pacing and you're questioning and wondering what's going to happen in that first sort of storyline, and it kind of just makes you keep rushing to see what's going to happen. And then when you get to the end of that storyline and it's really got you hooked and it gives you sort of a what the fuck kind of moment, it just is over. And then suddenly you're with these guys just hanging out in an amusement park. And it's sort of a real sudden shift, and it's a little bit odd, and it almost feels like this story was only included to make this a novel length. I mean, it's still pretty short, even by light novel standards. It's only about 160 or so pages. But nonetheless, again, it gives you a little bit more insight into the characters, and I'm hoping that that's probably going to be more of a payoff into book 3, which, based on at least Takane's story, I've got to read book 3 because, like I said, there is definitely moments in the first part of this book that hint at a much bigger story than even book 1 sort of gave the idea of, and I think it sounds kind of cool, and I'm very interested to see sort of how this all happens and pans out and where these characters are going to end up. So those are my thoughts on Kagerou Daze volume number 2. If you've read it, let me know what you thought of it down in the comments section below. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see all of my future light novel reviews, click on the subscribe to the channel. I hope to see you in my next video. Until then, bye-bye for now.